Welcome to Ep.2 of Generation Internet, a podcast where we talk to individuals who are using the internet creatively to make something of themselves.
This week, we talk to the founders of Power Plants, Maddy and Sarah. We chat about starting a small business in lockdown, the difficulties that come with shipping plants nationally, and the goals for the future of their business. Just for people who don't know what your business is about, what is Power Plants?
So Power Plants is a little eco-friendly and sustainable business that we set up, and we just sell houseplants that mostly we grow all of our own stuff. We don't use single-use plastics unless they're recycled already. We're really trying to fit the eco-friendly market, which you'd expect it to be like a houseplant business. You think, oh, eco-friendly, but we're trying to really push that and be more eco-friendly and sustainable than other businesses.
So talking about eco-friendly, what's kind of how do you make your plants more eco-friendly than other houseplant shops? Because I know that my automatic thought would be, oh, houseplants, I mean, they can't be that bad for the environment. They're probably fine. But what makes Power Plants more eco-friendly than other shops?
So we found a lot that our plants that we bought from other shops, we found that all of them had been imported, mostly from Holland, but then all around Europe, really. And so
sometimes even further too. Like you get a lot of houseplants imported from Southeast Asia because the climate's right for tropical houseplants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and because of the climate issues in the UK, even local kind of nurseries don't tend to stock houseplants unless they're imported because it's a more not rigorous climate, but it requires a lot more kind of tweaking to get the right atmosphere, which is kind of what they've done in Holland. Is they have these big kind of probably not a warehouse, but big plant tunnels that have got this tropical climate, which is why people tend to import them.
Yeah, and then you find that bigger businesses as well, they mass produce plants and just use so many chemicals and fertilizers, all unnatural ones that are so bad for our environment, our bees, our insects. So here as well, we'll use all natural fertilizers. We compost. We use rainwater instead of using tap water, and just little things that add up. Yeah, we really try and do those.
How do you make sure that you're still making a profit with keeping it sort of so eco-friendly?
It's actually not too hard for us at the minute, I find, because both of us were massive houseplant fans anyway. So we had massive collections of plants, and because we propagate our own plants and we get cuttings from people in the community, a lot of our plants don't have an insane initial kind of markup, and because we're putting the work in ourselves and it's something we'd probably do anyway, we're lucky enough that we don't have a really crazy kind of cost for these things. And because we're using, say, rainwater or natural fertilizers, we use eggshells and things like that, and those are things that we would have lying around the house anyway, and we've just kind of done the best that we can to without sounding cheesy, reduce, reuse, recycle kind of thing. We try and use as much as we can.
Can you explain the eggshells thing for me? I'm not quite sure what you use eggshells for.
Go on, Sarah, I'll let you do that.
Yeah, eggshells are great fertilizer. Basically, if you just keep your eggshells after you use eggs every time, just stick them in on a piece of foil in the bottom of your oven, just on a baking tray, crush them up, and just keep cooking them for every time you turn your oven on, just leave them in there. And then so all the nutrients in the eggshells, if you sprinkle your eggshells at the bottom of your pots, it's great fertilizer for your plants, and it just saves you throwing it in the bin, really.
Yeah,
and coffee grounds as well. Usually you've made your coffee, you bin the grounds, but those, depending on the plant, obviously each plant has its own requirements, but it's also a great kind of health kick for your plants.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Cool. Do you sell anything else other than plants, to boost the profit profit margins, or is it just plants that you're sticking to?
Yeah, no, so at the moment we're in a couple of days, hopefully, we're launching our own pot range. Before we had been stocking pots from a lovely little independent business. So yeah, it should be really exciting to get our new ones up. We've got some print and some artwork by some local artists. And
Cool.
I'm talking to another local artist at the moment, and hopefully she's going to do a collaboration with us, and we can release like her own pot range too.
We also have like plant hangers and things, and a lot of these
Yeah.
things are either made specifically by us or by typically like Sarah said, like local artists or other independent businesses, because that's kind of another aspect we try and focus on as much as we can, is kind of local community independent. Like we try and keep it in a weird way as small as possible while trying to be as expansive as we can.
We were talking about the relationship that you have with your artists that you collaborate with. So from kind of the conception of the idea of collaborating with a particular artist and going all the way through to selling it on your website or on Instagram, that sort of thing, how does that sort of process work?
So I think the first collaboration we did was with Megan Tay Photography, and she took a load of snaps of our plants, and then she was telling me about like these cool lumen prints that she'd been making, and how you can make them with fresh flowers to get different effects. I was like, yeah, that's really cool. Like, we should try it sometime. I was like, how about like we pick a sunny day, I'll bring loads of like plants round and we can make like different prints. And it was so much fun because I got to watch like every step of her like exposing different light levels to these prints, and it was wonderful. And now we've got them up on the website. We're actually reducing the price of them now, because it's just been a long time coming, getting everything kind of polished and like ready to sell. But we're hoping that we're really going to push those this week. But yeah, it's like a whole experience, is like working with the artists we do. And then like other, like our pots, it's more like a wholesale kind of deal with the one company we're working with. But because they're quite small, it's still quite nice. Like it's
It was
not
still
like
kind
buying
of
from
a
massive.
local
Yeah.
creator within the UK, and we just happened upon their stuff on Instagram, I think it was, and we're like, oh, we should definitely get some of those. We really like those. A lot of the time I think it is me and Sarah just going, that's really cool, we should try and get that kind of thing.
Yeah, we'd like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Instagram seems to be like super integral to your sort of business. Like
Massive,
like I came across Power Plants maybe in September or something, just happening upon it on Instagram. So so I think it might have been you did a giveaway or
Yeah.
something, yeah, and I must have come across it there. So how much is Instagram and social media integral to your business? Because I know that I've seen that you've done polls and stuff, which I assume is related to your new pot range.
Yes.
How much do those sort of techniques, how much does that really play into your stock and what you choose to produce?
I mean, it's massive, really. Like, our entire business wouldn't really exist without Instagram, if that makes any sense. We've been very lucky that it's all worked out, but we definitely owe a lot of our like business and a lot of our ideas as well to Instagram, because we were both planty people beforehand and kind of were very much on the plant side of Instagram anyway. We kind of knew what the vibe was and what we wanted, and then in creating the account now, kind of being able to see like analytics and things, like it's been really, really helpful, kind of knowing our demographic and using polls and things, and just even small interactions with people kind of commenting or sending us a message or even responding to a story with like a laughy emoji or a heart. It's really integral in integral, I'm not sure, in our kind of process of figuring out what we like and what kind of our customers like as well, and kind of finding that middle point.
Can you tell us a bit more about your demographic then, and what sort of the analytics show?
Yeah, it's good to see like our age range and like obviously kind of gender wise and also location wise, because while we are Liverpool based primarily, we do ship nationwide, but a lot of our audience is based in Liverpool, which is really great because we get to kind of interact with a lot of small planty people around the city. And age wise, I was kind of surprised because our age range falls a little bit older than I thought it might. I mean, it's not like nanas and stuff, but it's I want to say it's 24 to 30 something is kind of our prime range, which I thought was probably going to be slightly younger. And that does help because obviously when you're making pots or deciding what plants, it there's a massive kind of shift in what people tend to like depending on that age, you know?
So you mentioned that you were already sort of in the plant world on Instagram. What made you decide to set up your own page and start selling plants yourself? Did you see a sort of a gap in the market, or what was it that pushed you to take that step into going into business?
So really it just started in lockdown 1, and the three of us obviously living in the house together, we had plants everywhere already. And we were just like, we had so much spare time, we were just growing our own plants, growing food as well. It was great. And we just became like totally obsessed with it, and we'd do this every day. It was great. It was something to do. All enjoyed
We'd have
it.
like big group plant repotting sessions and all hang out in the garden when the weather was nice, just repotting every plant we could find or propagating things, and
proper bonding moments.
Our other housemate, who wasn't a big plant fan, probably hated us by that point because our living room was genuinely almost impossible to walk across at one point.
Yeah.
Just for the sheer volume of plants. And we started joking like, we should probably sell some of these because how are we even going to get them home over summer? Like, what's the plan here? What's the end goal? And it was kind of a bit of a joke at first. But then we were like, actually, no, we could definitely do this. Like, this might be quite fun.
Yeah, it was great.
So there was no like there was no passion for like business before that. It's the love of plants which came first, and it just naturally came from that.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've been
we're like, how can we make this a business?
Yeah. I think we've been quite lucky as well because we all had kind of different strengths. So like I'd say Sarah is like our prime gardener. Like she has years of experience from like grandparents and things and kind of grew up as a plant kid. I never really did because my mum hasn't got a massive green thumb, but I was very much a techie kid. So when it came time to like make a website and kind of start looking at social media or even photography, like I kind of had those things ready and it just melded together really, really well. And it just kind of, it happened so easily that we were like, oh, well, we've really got to pursue this now.
Is it enough to be your only source of income at the minute then, or are you still working on the side?
Yeah, so not at the moment. I'm starting a full-time job in plants actually, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Probably only got that because of the business, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But we're hoping that at some point we can become like
it would be fantastic,
like paying ourselves a regular wage.
Yeah.
Making our income from there.
But you're in different parts of the country at the minute then, so you've gone back to your homes.
I've gone back to my home, which isn't far. I'm only in Warrington, but at the minute it could be across the country. It wouldn't matter, you know.
But because it's mainly online, isn't it, anyway?
Yeah.
And you said you ship around the country anyway.
We do.
Yeah, we ship around the UK.
So going back to what you were saying about like how you hope for the business that it can be sort of your sustainable income, what other goals do you have? Especially, do you have any goals that have changed since you first set it up?
Yeah, definitely. So I think our main kind of goal now is getting a place. We need somewhere that we can grow loads of plants that isn't in my house.
Yeah, that's been like one of the biggest kind of issues we found during COVID, especially is like a kind of my mum's house kind of has a space we could use, and Sarah's parents' house kind of has a space that we could use if we were really struggling. But with COVID, like it's just not feasible. Like the going back and forth just wouldn't work. So Sarah's room is a jungle. It's full. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. It's just plants at this point. I don't even know how you sleep in there.
So yeah, like getting a space is our next step, I think. And it's just, but the way to get there is because like we didn't invest particularly much money in it to begin with. We're just recycling the money that we do, like we get now, into new things to try and get a bit more every time, just so we can keep on like purchasing different things. So it's like we're gonna have to do a big old sale of everything to then like move on to getting a space.
I see.
So it's just step by step.
Another big goal that we had, like when we kind of decided our goals a couple months ago, when we were like, where do we want this to go? Both of us kind of agreed, like on top of having a growing space, but also kind of having a shop front, whether that's an actual location that we rent or whatever, or even just things like makers markets. And obviously all of that's kind of been put on hold because of COVID. At the time we were like, this might be feasible in a few months time, and at this point it's like it could be years, we don't know, which is why kind of the online selling has been like our focus. And that's kind of what we're pushing at the minute.
I'm really interested what it would be like, what it was like for you at least setting up a business during a global pandemic, because it must be hard enough just by itself to start a new entrepreneur sort of thing without not being able to go anywhere. So what have kind of been the challenges that you don't think that would have been a challenge in real life, I guess?
Yeah, it's kind of really difficult to tell people about your business when it's just only like over the internet, because I noticed when lockdown like finished, I went to get a tattoo at one point, and whilst I was in there, I had sold so many plants just to my tattoo artist and another girl sitting in there. And then you realize how much not being able to speak to people face to face hinders like being able to sell people things. So it's like it was way more difficult, like even setting up in the first place, getting a bit of a reputation when it was only online, because people couldn't come visit us, or like, yeah, it was a bit of a struggle.
That is the thing as well with like an online following, is we're lucky that a lot of our audience is in Liverpool, but it could have, like our account could have grown, but all of our viewers could have been in like America, and it would have had no impact on the business itself. And like it did work out for us, I think, because of the amount of like tagging and interactions we had with like local people, but it was definitely kind of like up in the air at points, you know. Yeah, and just in general, like, to be fair, I think had it not been for COVID, I don't know if we would have really come to this point of actually committing and starting the business. Like, I think having that free time really kind of let us all kind of reflect on what we actually enjoyed, which helped.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I think had we not lived together in the first lockdown, it wouldn't have happened. Like, we live in separate places now, and like even when I was in Liverpool, we lived in separate houses, and even that was significantly more difficult than when we were like a couple rooms away from each other. And when you have such a physical product like plants, ferrying it between two places on an Arriva isn't really practical. But yeah, I think we were as well weirdly lucky with the COVID situation, because I think a lot of people did start looking at small businesses more than they had been. And I think a lot of people did start looking as well to plants as kind of this source of joy during lockdown when there was nothing else to really do.
And we really got a lot of support from like the community. It was really good.
So you think you've almost seen a surge in your sales then since lockdown? People have been looking to get some plants around the place for some joy.
Since lockdown 3, we've definitely had a surge.
Massively, yeah. I think part of it is natural business growth, because we kind of are hitting the point where it starts to get a bit more exponential. But there's definitely been like, we'll have a couple of days in a week where all of a sudden a bunch of people are like, need a lockdown plant. It just happens.
Do you think that plants are like the student's version of a dog?
Yes.
That's
No
how
doubt.
I see them.
No doubt. Yeah. 100%. And that's like a good part as well, like as you know, as previous students and having lived in halls and student houses that are just manky and stuff, we're like, well equipped to advise kind of like, this is a good plant for your like hole that has zero light, or this is a good plant to get if your house is dealing with mold. Like there are things like that we can easily suggest, and kind of I think that's what's allowed us to do so well, is being able to tap into that market, because we are also kind of that market.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was reading on your website about you do a service, you call it a plant consultation service?
Oh,
I'm
so the plant
interested in
rehab.
that. Yeah, exactly. I'm really interested. Firstly, how does it work, and like how do you know how much to charge and all that sort of thing?
So we kind of completely depend this on the particular like plant. So we'll do like get the person to send us pictures, and we'll like run like a diagnostic, see if we can help at all. Because if it's already dead, then there's no point us taking
There's
it.
only so much we can do.
Yeah. But so I've got like loads of like specialist soils here, and I'm pretty good at keeping plants alive. Like I care for about, I think I've got about 350. I managed to keep them alive, so I'm like, right, okay, it's fine, I can look after one more. And just give like this plant really specialist care, and just like basically until it bounces back. And we've had a few of these now. I've got 3 of these at the moment. So 3 plants that people have bought into our rehab. So yeah, they just get like, I basically time the lighting they get, the amount of nutrients, all sorts, the amount of water, and just really try and keep it constant. And yeah, they seem to bounce back, so it's working so far.
I think the reason we decided to go for this was just because every time any one of us like either went home for a weekend or was going somewhere, Sarah was always like plant babysitter, just the person we trust intrinsically with plants. And I was like, well, we can try and like bougie that up a bit. And she has an ability to kind of fix a lot of plants as well. Like one of the first ones we did was a friend's like boyfriend's succulent is the one in the photo that's like, you know, because succulents can stretch out over time, and just kind of having the balls to just chop that down and sort it as it needs to be, because a lot of people, you don't want to do that yourself, or you don't really even know where to begin with that, and just kind of having that experience.
How do you work out how to charge? So is it based on the plant, or is it based on how long they need rehabilitation for? Or
so I tend to base this on just really like what I need to use, like so soils, pumice, stuff like that, like ingredients basically. And yeah, we never really charge much because it's more like a service of, we're trying to kind of help people in the community. It gets people to come shop with us as well. If like they've got a plant that's a bit sick, I look after it for a bit, and then we're like their favorite plant shop. Then it's great. So we don't tend to charge too much, like what we use really, so only a couple of pounds.
we need some of them in our house. We've got some not so great looking plants.
Well, that's what we thought as well. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you love a plant, sometimes you hit your wit's end with it and you're like, this thing just keeps dying. And it might be a simple fix, but sometimes you're like, I need another human to sort this for me because I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Back and you're like, oh, I love this plant again.
Yeah. You've also got the Power to the People initiative as well.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I think that's my favorite thing that we do at the minute, or
Yeah.
one of my favorite things. So we knew that supply would eventually become an issue with us either growing our own plants or only getting UK grown tropical plants, because there's a very limited kind of amount of people who do that. So we thought, well, we're planty people, let's reach out to the planty people, and just essentially kind of wanted to get a group of people who also have excessive plant collections, because like most people who've got a lot of plants, you kind of end up pruning them down over time, and if you don't like waste, like most of us don't, you end up propagating, and all of a sudden instead of having one plant, you've got 6 of one plant. And we thought, well, we can reach out to those kind of people and ask for those cuttings to then propagate ourselves and sell on, but also kind of giving back to them as well, giving them a percentage of whatever that we earn from them. And it kind of keeps us a bit more grassroots, and also kind of allows us to interact even more with the community. And you know,
have you had many people take you up on that offer and get involved?
Yeah, so we've got two girls that work with us now. We've got Matilda and Molly. And yeah, they're both lovely. So they send us cuttings each month. We just reimburse for like packaging, and then when we sell them, give them some money back. And yeah, they're lovely. We've made like a really nice friendship with them. And then we have another girl in the community that just has loads of plants, and every so often, because she doesn't want the cuttings, she'll just come around, drop a load of cuttings off, and we'll give her like a plant or something in return, see if she wants anything. And yeah, it's great. She dropped a load off like 2 days ago, so we've got a bunch of new plants coming soon.
Yeah. Well, what a good way to like naturally grow the business as well. How would somebody get involved if they wanted to? How would if they were sort of a planty person, they've got all these cuttings, how would they get involved?
So on our website, powerplantsliverpool.com, there's a section in the top that's just called Power to the People, and it kind of gives you a bit more of an in-depth rundown about what we kind of do, what we kind of need from people who want to do it. And there's like a form at the bottom that if like anyone's interested, you can fill that out. Or if like you can't be asked, like you can always reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, and we'll happily like kind of answer any questions anyone has.
Oh, cool.
Have you ever seen any other plant companies do this sort of thing, or are you the only people who you know of doing it?
I think we're
So
the only people that I've seen.
Yeah, we were really looking for people that like that use cuttings, but I haven't seen it anywhere. I've seen like people are often like plant enthusiasts do like cut and swaps between each other, but it's never usually as a business.
It kind of came from like we started seeing a lot of cutting swaps, and we were thinking about getting involved in that. And it was also at the time where we were looking ahead a couple months, thinking how are we going to kind of get the volume of plants that we need, because obviously there's variety, like we want a bit more variety, we want some more. And we started to run into issues with finding other UK grown tropical plants, and we thought, well, if we combine these two ideas, and it worked kind of with like what we were trying to accomplish, and also kind of the fact that we wanted to keep everything quite organic.
So how long does it take to get from a cutting to a fully grown plant that you can actually sell?
So it completely depends on the plant really, but some of them I can get roots on them within like 2 weeks, and they can be potted up in that time. Others, I've still got some from about 6 months ago.
Oh wow.
That are going to be ready soon, hopefully.
It does help that it doesn't help that it's winter as well. Like,
oh yeah,
once summer comes, we'll all of a sudden about 60 plants will probably be ready out of nowhere, which is great for us.
Yeah. Just to take up a bit more room.
Yeah.
So you're currently based on Smithdown, but also on your website it says that your locations are in Torbay, Solihull and Liverpool as well. So how do the kind of logistics of your business work when you're all remote?
Basically, we were struggling a bit beforehand. Like, this is why we had locations on there then back in summer when we all went home, because I had the majority of the plants in my greenhouse back in Solihull. And it was a bit of we had plants all over, and we weren't shipping at that point to UK. It was pick up only or like local delivery, purely because we just hadn't worked out the logistics of that yet. So now, like, we still have Ella growing down south in Torbay, but because our plants are anywhere, most of them are here at the moment, but we can send them UK wide from any of our locations now. So it's definitely a lot easier than it was back in August time.
Yeah, it was difficult for a minute, but we sorted it. It all works out a bit.
Yeah.
I'm really interested about how the whole packaging and posting thing works, because my instinct would be that sending plants via Royal Mail would be a terrible idea. But how does that actually work in reality?
Not to slag anyone off, but it's an even worse idea to send plants with Hermes.
Definitely.
We've had a couple like obviously we package our plants really rigorously. And there's like we kind of like very tightly pack them with recycled papers and things, and have them as neatly as we can. But even that can't stand up to like a Hermes delivery man punting it across like a warehouse. So we've genuinely had plants arrive completely like a terracotta pot smash kind of thing. It's almost impressive. But at that point it kind of does allow us to kind of, as a business, reflect on things, figure out what the best way to respond is, and also kind of allows us to kind of express a bit of like customer service and kind of offer refunds or replacements and things.
Yeah, because we do struggle with our delivery, because it doesn't matter, because we've sent things with Royal Mail previously and they just don't show up for weeks, and by that time your plants are dead. And so we're having that problem. Had to swap to Hermes, and then we had 2 incidents in 1 week, and we're like, right, okay, we're gonna have to reconsider this. But the problem is reconsidering who we send it with, is if we don't send it with either of those companies, then unfortunately we have to put the price of delivery up, because it costs us so much to like send parcels, which you don't you don't even think about until you're sending them. You're like, £9 for a parcel.
I know, it's awful as well, because like as a consumer, when you go on a website, I mean, with like the Amazon culture we have, you expect delivery to be free and instantaneous almost, and then you get to checkout and you're like, why do I need to pay £9 like for shipping? And it's like, well, if you want the plant to come intact, unfortunately that's kind of the way we have to do it at the minute. And hopefully in the future we can work on getting those costs down and things, but it's a hurdle that we thought we'd kind of passed, and obviously things come up as time goes on, and it just gives us an opportunity to continue to grow. So
it's one of those things that would be mostly eliminated if you had the storefront, which you were talking about. Do you know where a storefront would be if you were to sort of open one up? Have you thought about a location for one or anything like that yet?
We went for a little window shop of a couple of places.
Yeah, we did.
But yeah, we didn't find anything that would be really fitted to us at the moment, but we'd like to be based around Smithdown, Allerton kind of way.
Yeah,
I think
because
it'd be great.
if you're like a planting person in Liverpool, Root is a massive shop, and obviously they have, I think, one in West Kirby, but they've got the one in the city centre, and then there's also a slower space which is kind of a much further down Penny Lane way, and we really kind of want to hit, since the student market is our primary market, having a storefront on Smithdown I think would just be ideal for us, and it is the goal. It'll be a minute. I mean, with COVID and everything, who knows, but it will be a minute. But it's definitely what we're kind of slowly working towards.
We're curious, as Brad and I have been talking about business and the process of graduating and then starting your own business, making it a side hustle. What was it like to graduate and then start a business straight off the bat?
To begin with, I don't think we took it too seriously. We were kind of really excited on it, but we were like, oh, are we doing this? Are we not? So to begin with, we just kind of flowed through it, and then all of a sudden we were like, oh, people really like this. Yeah, let's go for it. And it was just really exciting, setting everything up, but it didn't feel like we had to I had not put the work in, like we put the work in, but it didn't feel like a strain on us. We really enjoyed everything we were doing. So I think it was fairly easy for us, to be fair.
I think because we had that super organic growth, like it started with us liking plants and then kind of turned into, well, we can make like a couple quid off selling these extra plants, which then turned into, well, we should maybe get a website, which then turned into like kind of this whole national shipping kind of thing. Like, and just we've been very lucky that the whole expansion of everything has been very organic and very like, it feels like the right thing to do next. We've never had to kind of deal with a lot of strain, which I guess is why we've kind of kept going as far as we have.
Are there any hurdles that you did run into in that transition from it being like a hobby to deciding that we're actually going to make this into a business and try and make it as profitable as we can? Are there any like unexpected hurdles that you ran into, or?
I wouldn't say it's unexpected, but I think the biggest one that we dealt with and still do to an extent deal with is supply. Because obviously when you're growing a business, your purchases, your orders are only limited to how much you can offer. And because we are tapping into this kind of niche sustainable UK grown tropical houseplant thing. England's not known for its tropical weather. There aren't a lot of growers of tropical plants in this country, and there's a limit because of location and like physically we're restricted to Sarah's bedroom at the minute. There's only so much we can grow, and it's something that every kind of couple weeks we come back and review. And like Power to the People was like our first kind of way to combat that, because we didn't need a ton of plants, and we've looked into a lot of like companies and other things, and there are companies out there that we've kind of been working with and things, but sometimes there are price restrictions and we're not at a point where we can drop £1,000 on some very like nichely grown plants. But we're definitely there, kind of we're reaching that point now where I wouldn't call it that much of a hurdle anymore. Like we know how to cross the hurdle. We're just kind of waiting for the right time to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
That's the whole point. Like all of this is still really fun for us, and I think it will continue to be. And I think that's why we've been so lucky with our success. Like it hasn't felt very forced or anything, because we enjoy it, which sounds really cliche, but you know what I mean.
So looking into the future, if we say that we had this interview again this time next year, what do you hope has changed, or what do you hope has, what's kind of your goals for this time next year?
It would be nice to be paying ourselves a salary.
Yeah.
And I would like to have a nice big greenhouse.
And I think
if I can talk Maddy into it.
Oh, definitely. If you find a greenhouse, Sarah, it's all yours. Yeah, sorting out the kind of growing space issue. And I think once that's sorted, it will allow us to grow more and more plants. Like I think we kind of limit ourselves at the minute to what we know might sell or what we know is popular. And there are times where we're like, this is a super funky plant, we should stock it. But at the same time, as business owners, we're like, it's not a massive plant at the minute, so it might not be a wise decision to invest a ton of money into it. And kind of getting that space and getting those orders and things will kind of be able to tap into the nicheness as well, which will be nice.
Yeah, and we can stock more than like one thing at a time, because at the moment it's very like we're based on either plants or pots or something at each time. Whereas like if we could just have a constant like supply of UK grown plants coming in, and then we could also have like the funding to kind of stock other things, I feel like it'd feel more like I don't know, like an inclusive kind of shop. It'd be really nice.
So do you see that being achieved through your Power to the People, or do you see that being achieved through like propagating your current stock and then developing it further?
So I think we'd like to carry on with like all our different kind of like routes with that. And there's also a woman based in Lichfield that started out doing a similar thing as us, but now she is just growing plants for wholesale. So she's become more of a nursery than an actual shop. So it's really nice. She's all eco-friendly, doesn't use any plastic, no peat. Oh, it's brilliant. She does a really good job. And so we've been talking to her about like stocking some of her plants as well. So it should be really nice, like having a combination of all of them. And yeah, then we can ensure lots of nice different stock as well.
I think that's like important to us to keep all of those kind of avenues open. And I think that's like what's allowed us to kind of have the growth that we've had thus far. Like I don't think we'll ever resort to just one of those things. I think having the diversity is really important for us.
So if someone was going to start a business in lockdown, whilst we have this, well, quote unquote free time, not sure if it's all that free for a lot of people, but say that someone was going to start something in lockdown or in these sort of situations, what would be your kind of, maybe each of you, what would be your like top 3 tips for starting either a business online or a business where it's in a completely unexpected sort of circumstances?
I would say that, especially like in lockdown, it's important that whatever you're trying to start is something you're very not passionate about, but something that you yourself would be interested in as a consumer. Because I think in normal circumstances you could probably push through and do whatever, but with it being locked down, it's so important to kind of feed your soul as well and do something you're interested in, because then it's not just work, if that makes sense. And I think utilizing social media is so important. So not just Instagram, but all social medias. Like we're looking at getting more heavily involved in TikTok because it's so important right now. I mean, people spend such a large amount of their time on their phones, and even more so during lockdown, because what else is there to do but like doom scroll through every social media app. And I think that's super important, and creating the media that you want to see and
Can I
not
just
just what you
ask,
think will do good.
what would power plants look like on TikTok? Like how might I
Hopefully
be
you'll
able to
find out
visualize that?
soon.
I really don't want to know because Maddie's been making these TikToks, but I think I'm one in the videos, so it's a
Yeah.
bit.
It's been weird because obviously Sarah's got all the plants and all the ability to record them right now, but I would say I'm the one who knows a bit more about TikTok. I don't even know if you've ever been on it, Sarah.
No.
I think that's like one of the things with TikTok that we want to focus on, because our Instagram is definitely kind of almost a storefront for us. It's very professional, but I think the importance of things like TikTok is to show kind of not just the human side of it, but also to show like just to create interesting and entertaining content that people are going to look at and go, this is funny, click and find out, oh, it's also a shop. It's not just stupid people with plants kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a super important part of branding and marketing in like this era right now.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah.
What about you, Sarah? What are your top tips?
Talk to people. There is always networking to be done. It seems hard, and if you're introverted, it is so difficult. But honestly, if you reach out to people on Instagram, keep talking to people, you make really important bonds like in the community that you need to have that support. Is now we've got like a couple of like returning customers that we made such good bonds with that like we're their go-to plant shop, or like even just telling people like when I got my tattoo, like, oh yeah, I run a plant shop. And it's great, like talking to people has driven in so many of like our kind of our orders. So it's really great. Never be like kind of afraid to ask people like, oh, would you like this plant order from this lady we wanted to do, it's like £500 minimum spend, and we're like, we're a small business, would you be able to just knock it down a little bit? And if you don't ask, you don't get. She came back to us and was like, yeah, of course I can drop it, like help out another small business. So yeah, like just ask the questions that like you might not want to ask, but it's super beneficial.
I've found that like through talking to people and like asking, most people are willing to help you out, which like I think we kind of expect people not to, but like I had a similar thing. I was working with like a startup radio station in Liverpool called Svara, and they were looking at getting a bunch of office plants from Root, and I was like, did you know I run a plant business? And sort of kind of pilfered Root's business. Like I did, not in a bad way, but like they were all keen to help us out and like support us, but also because we had this eco-friendly kind of ethos, they were like, oh yeah, I'm down to help you guys with that, like we really believe in that too. And it's like, it's just great. People are great sometimes, not all the time,
They even had us on, so it was really nice.
Oh,
really?
It's nice to hear that there's still some faith in humanity, really.
I know, it's all that's driving this lockdown, isn't it? Small nuggets you get.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed hearing more about power plants and
Thank you.
what's been going on. So
thanks so much for having us, guys.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Hopefully we can do it again in a year, and we can talk about how you've achieved the goals, which you...
your beautiful new store and all this.
Got a massive greenhouse somewhere in Liverpool.
That'll be it. Thank you again.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Generation Internet. Find us on social media at Generation Internet, and you can listen to more episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
If you would like to find out more about power plants, visit them on Instagram at Power Plants Liverpool, or visit their website powerplantsliverpool.com.